how can I make more money? This. How's it come together? There's two big ways you can make more money that I found. And this is a business 101. You know, it's something that people that have successful businesses, they understand and know. There's two metrics that you can adjust to make more money. The first metric is to have more customers, have more people you serve, have a bigger audience. The second metric is to charge more, to charge more for what you're doing. That second part has a little bit of a caveat because you might not have necessarily have to charge more. You might just make your work a little bit less expensive. I would caution you on that second part though, because once you start to make yourself a little bit cheaper, then you're sliding from a French Laundry or a really fancy restaurant and slowly sliding to McDonald's. You don't worry about McDonald's ingredients. I'm pretty sure they don't worry about it either. No shots at McDonald's. I know folks that work with McDonald's. No offense to y'all. The main focus, though, is on making the most of the money and making the profit margin as big as possible versus necessarily having the highest quality ingredients. That ends up being the balance that you strike. When I have my coaching practice, it's at damonbrown.net, and I started to build it up. And it kind of goes in waves. If y'all are coaches or you're a therapist or any type of service organization where you're working with people one-on-one, you have ebbs and flows. I have some years where I have so many coaching clients, like my head is spinning. I have other years where it's a relatively quiet, stable, and it goes like waves. One of the decisions that I made a few years back was during one of those big waves that I still want to keep one-on-one coaching. One individual, we're talking just like I'm talking to you. That gave a level of intimacy, a level of connection, and frankly, one of the reasons why I love coaching. I do some group coaching sometimes, but mostly I focus on the one-on-one. That was a decision. Does that leave money on the table? Perhaps. And is there certain challenges with the system? Sure, absolutely. But I'm able to change that because every year, if you've been watching Bring Your Earth TV for a while, you know that I raise my prices every year because I get better as a coach. Hopefully I'm getting smarter just like you are every single year from the books you read or whatever, connecting with people, just your experience, but also for the cost of inflation. And no one's going to knock on your door and say, hey, you should raise your prices because inflation is 5% this year in America. No one's going to do that for you. So as you get more seasoned, you do need to raise your price. As I raise my price, it makes it easier to be committed to the people that I serve without worrying about my pocketbook. So if you're trying to make more money, again, there's two routes you can do it, as basic as possible. Number one is to increase the amount of people that you serve, but then you have to be careful as far as the quality, like I was talking about, make sure that you can serve all those people. And that requires you maybe scaling, which might take more money out of your pocket because you need to hire more people. The alternative is to raise your prices, but you better make sure if you do raise your prices, it's justifiable. I know I'm a better coach year to year from working with y'all, from doing new books, from coaching additional people, from doing this TV show, from going to the TED conference, all these different things. So I know I'm up in my game to justify my prices. Get my prices right on my website at damonbrown.net. So if you're going to raise your prices, you need to make sure that you show up in a way that's reflective of those prices. And if you're going to serve more people, it might bring you in more money, but then you need to make sure you're not costing the service that you're going to give to those people, and or you might end up losing your margins on that and whatever benefit you have because you might need to hire more people to take care of your bigger audience. Be sure and jump in the comments if you have any questions in regards to how you can make more money. There's some great resources on this one. I got to say. Alan Weiss, where do I start? He's a consultant, about a generation or two older than me. Family members, you know who you are, put me onto him. Fantastic. This book changed the way that I looked at my work. I was a relatively new consulting. I don't know how to say it. Relatively new consultant doing editorial consulting for organizations. This is a handful of years ago. And I was negotiating something. I didn't know what the hell to charge. A lot of people that were around me, back to the network thing, hadn't done what I had done, or they did it, but they did it in a different way. And I got so much game from this book. I remember I was negotiating something. Money was tight, but this was going to be super lucrative. And that's kind of a tough place to be, where you're hungry, maybe quite literally, you're hungry, and you have to negotiate something and be of your higher mind. Because then you don't want to underprice yourself either, just because you're desperate. Because then, at least in my case, when I've done that, I've kicked my own ass, as they used to say. Book was recommended. I had to give them the proposal the next day. I found this book on Kindle. I swear it costs about $40. And I was like, oh my God. But I'm negotiating. It was a very high, very lucrative contract. At least it could have been. I bought the book, tore through it that night, end up charging 2 to 3 times more than what I was initially going to charge. And they said, no problem. And we went for it. That particular project changed the course of my career at that moment, all based on this book. So I cannot overhype this book. His basic argument is that we need to price our work based on the value that we're giving to the organization versus the time we're putting into it. The value we're putting into that organization versus the time we're putting into it. So it doesn't matter if the project or whatever you're working on takes an hour or it takes 100 hours. It doesn't matter. If you're going to work with an organization, if you're going to do a book, whatever the case may be, an organization or group of people that you're working with, it's going to 10x the amount of money they can make, then your proposal, your contract, your argument should be reflective of that. That doesn't mean you have to give them a silly price. It just means don't undervalue yourself. And if we're going to make more profit in this upcoming year, it can't be about, this is how much I think I can get away with. It has to be about bringing your worth and saying, this is what I'm contributing to this conversation. This is what they're going to get out of it. Based on what they're going to get out of it, this is how much I'm going to charge. Now, whether they're able to accomplish that or you guys need to compromise, that's a different discussion. But I know if you undercut yourself, people will happily accept it. You can't negotiate your way up. But if you actually bring your worth and say, this is how much I'm worth, then you can talk your way into something that hopefully takes care of everybody involved. I'll get off my sermon on that one. It's a hell of a book. Highest recommendation on here by far. Why You Aren't Charging Enough, a recent episode. It takes all my conversations on the Bring Your Worth TV show on here and puts them into a digestible format, so you should understand or can understand why you should be charging more. So many people that I coach, there's a level of resistance for asking or even saying, this deserves more money on my end. There's a resistance there. There's a challenge. And it often comes down to us not realizing how much worth we bring. This show is called Bring Your Worth for a reason. We often are worried about this person or this organization doesn't have the budget for me. They're going to say no, they've never done this before. The litany of things is just long. You're probably familiar with some of them. I hear them in my mind too. But all of them often come down to, I'm not sure if the work that I'm doing is worth the money that I want to charge. There's no outside entity, even me, that can show you what your work is worth. You have to figure out that part of the journey. I can't do that for you. I can't do that for you. You have to find value in your own work. But I will tell you this, until you find value in your own work, then nobody's going to charge you what you're actually worth. That's not going to happen. This episode is the beginning of that conversation. Um, Again, my highest recommendations. This one right here, buy it now. Buy it now. I think it's a little bit cheaper now. Buy it now. And why you aren't charging enough, watch it as soon as the show is done. Like, biggest recommendations if you're worried about your money. Bring Your Worst show every Wednesday and Sunday, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Subscribe if you're feeling the content, or throw your comments in. What challenges do y'all have as far as with getting your money right? Asking for the money that you feel like your business or your service deserves, with the profit margins and so forth. Hopefully, I've given some game and some insight into that. But I'd love to hear more about what you guys are going through.